Thank you for tuning in. Our presenter is Brandon Taylor, President and COO of OneSoft Solutions. Mr. Taylor, you may begin.
Hi, thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Brandon Taylor, President and CEO of OneSoft. We are a SaaS software company focused on recurring revenue. Our solution, Cognitive Integrity Management, is a mission-critical enterprise-level solution for oil and gas pipeline operators. It's been validated and deployed by our clients for Fortune 500 and 100 companies and an industry super major. We have 9 customers now, just added 3 last quarter, and roughly about 246 integrity engineers use our solution as their primary tool to do their jobs on a daily basis. And our mission is to predict pipeline failures, thereby save lives and protect the environment with the assistance of machine learning and data science and cloud computing. We're playing a very pivotal role within the digital transformation of this industry, and I'm going to take you basically through where we are kind of today. If you look at the market cap, we're $66.7 million. We have $8.2 million in cash, no debt, very significant insider ownership at 34%. And a disclaimer, I'll move to the next slide. For those who have been following the company, you have to bear with me. Probably heard lots of this presentation before, but I'll discuss some new developments specifically around sales and the onboarding process that we're focused on. A little bit about the current industry problem. Under the Department of Transportation in the U.S., and we focus specifically right now, we've been focusing on the U.S. because of the regulatory environment. So Department of Transportation, under that is the Pipeline Hazardous Safety Material Act. They regulate any operator that owns a pipeline in the United States, whether that's liquid or gas, and they mandate that an operator records different metrics, specifically around release events. That's what this slide is showing you. And really what we're looked at when we first started this project was, how is the industry doing? And as you can tell, over the last 20 years, not so great. In fact, on the 20-year average, 1.7 releases on average happen every single day in the U.S. So we don't hear about those unless there's, an injury or fatality or, very significant environmental damage. But, there have been 3 over the last 20 years that have been billion-dollar cleanups. We think that data science machine learning is really the only plausible way that we're going to reduce these pipeline failures. And we'll go through our solution on that. So this is what the industry does today. They collect the data through the device on the left in the screen. It's called a PIG, a pipeline inspection gauge. Various technology and sizes of these tools. There's roughly about 45 tool manufacturers. We don't do any hardware. We're a straight-up software company. And they have sensors around these. So a pipeline operator such as Phillips 66, as an example, will contract one of these tool vendors. PHMSA mandates that you have to run one of these tools on your pipeline every 5 years if it's liquid, 7 if it's gas. So Phillips will contract with one of these tool vendors. They'll go launch it in a launch valve. The product actually pushes it down the pipe. And then they take it out. The tool vendor then takes it back to their shop. All of the data is on this device. They aggregate that data, and then they deliver it to the tool operator. And typically in a comma-delimited Excel file, some other formats occasionally. And then what the pipeline integrity engineer at Phillips will do is they'll open up this Excel file. They'll say, when do we run this tool on this section of pipe last? Let's say it was 5 years ago. They'll go find that file. Then they'll open it up, and they'll manually start filtering Excel sheets and comparing these. That's typically how it's done. In the early days, 5 of our 7 customers did this 100% Excel. We basically take this data then, just to kind of give you a sense on how we do it. This is a really short 2 minutes. So you can see that we have a bunch of dashboards and data analytics, and all you need is a browser to run our solution. And what this is illustrating is we can basically see a whole bunch of role-based users in our system can go and find out instantly, which is clicks of a button, that they can drop that file into the solution and see specifically what's happening to the data. We have a bunch of what we call Microsoft Power BI. We use a bunch of Microsoft services within this solution. The concept here is that you can literally drag and drop that file in you get from the tool vendor, go and upload that data, and then within minutes, all of our algorithms will run. It'll align it to all of the previous runs that you've ever done on this segment of pipe, and then we can get to business intelligence. And really what that means is a regulatory environment that FIMS has dictated, you have to check for these conditions, there's industry-specific conditions, and then there's company-specific conditions. And then we're evolving our own conditions, our own learnings. So an operator can see, and today we have roughly about 246 different conditions, metal loss greater than 80%. An operator can choose which of these conditions they want to run, and then when it finishes that analysis, you can basically see 3D visualizations of the pipe. So for time, you can watch an anomaly over the last 20 years, how much has it grown, where is it on the pipe, more importantly, where is it in the world? Related to your pipeline system. So specifically, is it in a high consequence area? And in this case, you can see it's next to an interstate. And then we can do some really fancy stuff around data that they had never been able to do. Today, we have roughly about 65 million features in our database, and that'll continue to grow. And we're starting to see patterns and starting to write white papers around growth that haven't been able to be done before, because we're literally capturing data across multiple pipeline operators and running our algorithms across them. So that kind of gives you a sense on what the solution is able to do at a 30,000-foot view. We go to the next slide. This is really about TAM in the U.S. So today, the industry spends about $637 million on this green slice of the pie, and that's really the focus that we're focused on. This is the evaluation component. The inspection is where they're running the tools. We'll have some impact to that. Maintenance is where they're actually, when they find a piece of pipe with high corrosion, they have to go excavate it and repair the pipe. So we'll take a slight last piece of that. Globally, it's a 1.1 billion marketplace. And this is just around, there's roughly about 660,000 miles of piggable pipe, about 2.1 non-piggable, so a total of about 2.7 in the U.S. And we've just released functionality last year to help start addressing and improving out the concept of the non-piggable pipe. A little bit about our Microsoft relationship, so in our growth strategy. I think I jumped a slide here. Yeah, so a little bit about our growth strategy. We want to talk in March of last year, we completely formalized the process, and as I said, last quarter, we started seeing the fruits of that happening. So we've locked in new customers. Our top of our funnel looks good, and that's what the right side is that, we're roughly tracking about 300,000 miles identified in our sales pipeline, involving about 35 companies. At any point in time, we have 6 to 12 production trials underway, and lots of Fortune, if you look at these 500 customers, greater than 51,000 miles of pipe. We work with Microsoft pretty exclusively, came out of Accelerator. I'll talk about that in the next slide, but we're also seeing a lot of traction internationally now. So a partner of ours is Worley Parsons, an engineering firm that's running production trials in Australia today. South America, we have 4 or 5 production trials underway in South America and Central America. And then very significantly, our first client is Phillips 66. We actually took over some IP from them that we, in conjunction with Microsoft, moved in part of our solution that we think has probably given us 3 to 5 year head start. If you look at the consumption economics of this, as we get in and it's enterprise-wide, we'll actually start doing what we call consumption economics. So as we add significant new pieces of intellectual property functionality in the solution, we'll anticipate that we'll be able to charge more for the solution. Our EBITDA increases at scale. at, I think, 10 million, it's 40 to 45%. Is the last time we did that. PHMSA came out with a new rule, and they were supposed to release that in July. They delayed it to December, and I think they're just in still process of actually delaying or releasing it. That basically has said, okay, we got to start moving out of Microsoft Excel and these manual processes, getting into more extensive data management and analytics. Very, very feature function wise to what we do in SIM today and our solution today. And so we're seeing a lot of uptake from customers, specifically right now in the gas utility business, on them basically starting to move into our solution. A little bit about Microsoft. So we came into the solution through Microsoft Accelerator in 2016. If you're familiar with that, Microsoft is an incubator, just like a bunch of tech companies. They looked at 721 applicants from 50 countries. This is in 2016. We were one of 9 that were selected. We launched out of there. We've been working with Microsoft for over 18 years. OneSoft is a company, just as a side note, it's been in business for 21 years, lots of history, success. I'd encourage you to go look at our website and see the chronology of that. But after we launched, we signed up with Phillips 66. We have a bunch of press releases about that and the IP. Obviously aggregating through new customers, and 2020 was a pretty pivotal year from us from a solution perspective, in that Microsoft had a conference that we submitted our solution to, and we were named the 2020 one of the Global Finalist Partner of the Year runner-ups for application innovation, which was quite exciting to the team, since that was a worldwide award on Azure, Microsoft's cloud. So it really helped validate the solution within not only Microsoft ecosystem, but us as a company and our customers on the IT side of the house. But we work with Microsoft on a daily basis. They're in all of our sales deals. Their account teams bring us in when it's an oil and gas customer. So it's a very significant relationship, and we continue to work and expand that relationship. A little bit about the commercialization strategy in 2020. We really spent, as mentioned in the earlier slide, in March, hired a new VP of sales, brought on a technical sales manager and a full-time lead gen team. We're really started moving, and then beyond COVID, so probably late fall is where we really started seeing a lot of traction on this. As far as our commercialization, we revamped the sales process completely from initial meeting all the way, and I'll talk through that. As far as the cost savings component in the next slide, but here you can see that our objective here is to basically get into, our call to action is to get into production trials within a 3-week window. So first meeting is an introductory briefing. Next week is the business process, where they take us through theirs, deliver data to us. We spin up one of our sites for them. We load their data, and then we take them through results meeting in the 3rd week, and then we start talking commercial and legal and IT and all of that stuff. So we've really expanded not only the top of the funnel, but basically how fast we can get them through them. And we're constantly, as we brought on these new customers, we're now really focused on continuing the onboarding experience. We'd like to move through H1, H2 of kind of what we call a self-service model, meaning less dependent on our team and clients to be able to do more self-service type activities. Engagements really focused on partners and developing kind of that global, that's evolving continuously. So I mentioned we have production trials in Australia, production trials in South America. We'll keep doing that and start looking at EMEA in different parts of the world. Middle East, we signed a partner agreement with an organization there that's working in the Middle East. So we're really starting to see uptake around the world now, not only just through Microsoft, but other partners. One of the things that came out of last year, and probably a direct result of COVID and the price of oil at the same time hit, is that it became very apparent through our prospects that we needed to look at cost savings. And specifically, we needed to show that running cognitive integrity management in the organization would be a net savings for the organization. So we spend about 2 to 3 months, and each one of these buckets represents basically a business function within an organization where we can actually dramatically reduce the cost to what current processes are being done. So for example, if you built a system in-house and you have a database, we've done that twice for customers where we displace those, and we can show explicit savings of 50%. So we're starting to measure that. Big management's another big bucket of money where we've written a white paper that shows for every 1% that we show improvement on a repair fraction within an organization, we can reduce their dig budget. So that's that big maintenance number. So each one of these, on average, just kind of show you the equivalency of it. We're doing this per our customers and prospects. Last time we did an average across all of them. On average, we're saving around $3.3 million per organization. We've had production trials go all the way up to $8.5 million. So it's very significant savings, and it's net savings, which is really exciting. A little about recurring revenue. The blue bars are basically, and the trend line is probably the important part here, is really what we're focused on. It's the #1 objective in the company, will be for the foreseeable future, which is SIM ARR, annual recurring revenue. So we see the trend line there. We're trying to take away some of the variability, and it's unfortunately just the way that the business operates and industry in general uses our solution. There's some variability in the licensing model that skews kind of how that trend line, these bars, so they're not just normal. The green line represents one-time development money that we get. We've left that in the chart because we think that we'll continue to get those over time. But really what we're really focused on is the SIM ARR. So you'll see a lot of focus on that as we go. Obviously you can look at all the EBITDA and all the normal things over here. Today we are focused on North America specifically for SIM, but we did launch last year an innovation lab. The objective of the lab is to basically go find net new SIM IP that we could build and put in SIM that would incrementally, accretively help our SIM ARR. That's the primary focus. And then look outside of SIM to basically start looking at other TAM. Something that we can still use the core foundation of SIM and maybe apply it to another industry. As an example, one of the things that we had started, unfortunately got postponed because of COVID, was water and sewer. So that was on the list. That'll get picked up again. We had a city lined up and a tool vendor lined up so we could start seeing, we'll start doing our market research on that. But water and sewer is another one where it's a very similar problem, meaning aging infrastructure. They still run those pigs, still pipe, typically handled through municipalities. So we got to get the economics right and the self-service model underway so we could go address that market. Another one that's been on the list is rail. Lots of white space. This industry in general is pretty laggard. Digital transformation is just happening, so there's lots of white space on where we think we can take that. That's what the Innovation Lab's job is to go find out so they'll end-to-end it all the way, not just technically, but business-wise, the market size there, the competitors, all the normal stuff that you would expect a lab to do. Final slide, then we'll leave some questions. Investment highlights. First mover advantage. When we started this, we usually had to explain, cloud, what cloud is. Prospects would have to go visit the Microsoft data center. Digital transformation is now pervasive. IT organizations in this industry have started that initiative. But we think we have 1 to 2 year head start on that. We think we have a 3 to 5 year on the IP that we got from Phillips 66 and moved into Microsoft's cloud. The footprint of our solution is quite large. One thing that we can deploy this anywhere in the world within a few hours. Any data center, anywhere in the world that Microsoft has a data center. and it's for the first time we actually are aggregating data in one central place across multiple customers. That hasn't happened, and we're really creating what we call a DaaS platform, right? Data as a service, roughly about 65 million algorithm or 60 million type features. That'll grow to 100, 200 million, and what that'll really be able to do for us is that we'll discover patterns through data science, machine learning that have never been discovered. So our algorithms run a layer above the data, so we'll be able to aggregate those learnings, and then at some point we'll figure out how to monetize those. And we're hoping that our first kind of iteration on that is around growth, because we can align data for periods of time, anytime a tool from the first tool run to today, which may be 20 years, that we'll be able to start aggregating and learning and basically sharing white papers around growth. We're hoping this year we'll really start showing some impact to that model. High recurring revenue with good margins, no debt, lots of cash, insiders, as we saw, own about 34%, so we're all vested here. And I think I'll pause there. We have 5 minutes. I want to leave time for questions. See that we have one. I'll go ahead and read these and then answer them. How difficult it would be for another company to gather AI data from multiple pipeline operators to build out completing algos? So, when we first started this, there's no, from a data science machine learning perspective, there is no truth, what a data science person would say, truth data. So we actually, in our solution, had to build input screens for these subject matter experts at these pipeline operators to help us build truth. I think when we roughly ingested around 2,000 inline inspections, that's what's coming out of these pigs, we had enough data to start building a trained model on data science, and that's the model that's keep iterating. I think we've had 65 iterations on our ingestion algorithm, and it learns every time we ingest. So it's super difficult. We think it's a competitive advantage in that there's no truth. Somebody would have to start where we started 3 years ago to basically build that. We're tool agnostic, meaning we don't care what type of technology you use, and we don't care what vendor. That's one of the reasons we think that operators are really interested in our solution. When do you think the company will be profitable? We'd actually hit cash neutral before we raised money. We made a conscious decision to go out and raise money for two reasons. One is that, we've been in the software business for a long time. We wanted to keep that first mover advantage. So we basically wanted to go faster. That meant hiring more salespeople, et cetera. And we wanted to look at accretive M&A, which lines into the next question is, is there any competition? We keep looking for competition. We go to a conference every year. This year, unfortunately, has been moved to virtual, but to date, we haven't seen any direct competition. And what I mean by that is that when we go to our deals, we're not having another competitor there and there where they're trying to do feature comparisons. It's typically us and how they do it today. That's the decision point an operator would have, even though we anticipate there will be, so we're always watching. Our objective here is just to keep ahead, traditional SaaS, keep our heads down, focus on our existing customers, making sure that we're replacing the work that they do today. Next question is, how many pilots on the go right now? So we have, I don't know the exact number, we just added another one last week, so it fluctuates from 6 to 12. I think we have five in South America right now, three in Australia. I don't remember how many. So we have lots of production trials. Obviously, the last couple of weeks of December, those, everybody goes quiet, so we'll pick those back up and continue through the process on those. Where do you see OSS in 5 years? Last year at this time, we'd actually put in our MD&A that we anticipated a doubling revenues year over year for the foreseeable future, and COVID hit. We haven't met as a management team and completed our budget forecasting, but I'd like to see us kind of get back on that track. This is a laggard industry. A lot of them still like to meet. So, we'll need to get, back to where we can get on planes and go to conferences and sit in rooms with people. But, that would be the objective. So if we're looking, we can take our revenues, and if we're doubling revenues, that's where I'd like to see us get. I think there's going to be a crossing the chasm, a tipping point here. If we can get to 15, 20 customers, you'll start seeing a lot more uptake on that. Then you need to raise capital in the future. We have no plans to raise capital in the future. We did that raise. We have plenty of cash. We'll hit cash neutral again at some point here in the near future. The only reason there's been discussion and we've looked at potentially NASDAQ, and if we did something like that, there may be a need there, and it would be, some big event. Maybe we'd do an M&A of some type. So, but right now there's no plans to raise any capital in the near term. We have plenty of cash. I think that might be the last. Oh no. Okay, there's a few more. How sophisticated are the super majors in-house solutions? Yeah, surprisingly, they were 100% Excel when we deployed them. And then the process of the upstream business looking at that. So not that sophisticated, surprisingly. Given your partnership with Microsoft, it's a challenge to work with a company that is AWS or Google Cloud. We've been very fortunate to date. We've seen a lot of these companies do what we call dual cloud, and typically it's AWS and Azure. We have not seen any Google Cloud in any of the pipeline operators. So we haven't had no pressure or need to basically move onto a different cloud platform. We're not anticipating that we're going to, based on what we're seeing with Microsoft right now. Okay, I think that's all the time that we have. Appreciate everybody taking time to sit in and listen, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. That will conclude the webcast. Thank you for participating.